Hello, and welcome to ShePak Unleashed. I'm one of your hosts, Tania.
I'm Nichole. Welcome to your weekly dose of candid discussion and the pursuit of finding your tribe in this journey of motherhood, womanhood, and sisterhood.
I'm Ashley. Join us as we leave no stone unturned. In each episode, we have heart-to-heart conversations that aim to challenge and empower one another.
I'm Jenny. No more waiting. ShePak Unleashed begins now. On today's episode, Ambition Unleashed, Advancing Through Education.
Who wants to dive in?
I feel like education is obviously really important to me. It's something I feel really strongly about. And I was the one who pushed us to do this episode because I feel like we're each have decided to pursue further education. And it's not something that we necessarily talk about because it's not always a traditional undergrad bachelor's degree. Mm-hmm. So I will say, like, this conversation is mostly post. We all have our bachelor's, and there's a lot of privilege that comes with that. And so now it's kind of, you've been in the career a bit and deciding whether or not to go for more school. And Nichole, you just
And
finished
why?
something,
Lots of
right?
different motivations.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also interesting is I will say with my full chest, I don't think school is for everybody.
Yeah,
I will literally
fair.
say with my full chest. I have a bachelor's degree, but it has literally done nothing for me.
It opened
other
doors.
than give me an opportunity to go into it. I did not learn anything from my
Like the
bachelor's
content
degree.
of the degree itself.
The content of your degree is not applicable to what you do as an adult or in any of your jobs.
No.
But
Just open
but
those
yet,
doors.
Yeah.
And yet you decided to get an additional certification.
Because it is something that I have to have for my business to be licensed, not because I want to.
So your motivation is more like career advancement, opening doors versus necessarily getting skills.
So, like,
It
okay.
sounds like it's a compliance thing more than anything.
Mine is more compliance. Mine is not about the fact that I think I need to, like, I am a big proponent of believing you learn on the job. You learn in real life. I am not a book learner by any means. I am anti-book learner because I have learning disabilities, right? Dyslexia, dysgraphia, like book learning for me has always been such a huge struggle. And I was never supported through it. So, like, I don't enjoy, and I don't test take well. I don't do school well. Like, it is not for me. I can't sit still. So, like, I got my bachelor's degree because, honestly, it was, like, what you were supposed to do at the time.
So true.
Not
Our whole
because I
generation's
think
been told that.
right, not because I think, like, I would have had a better or worse career had I not had it. Honestly, I probably would have been an entrepreneur sooner had I not gotten a bachelor's degree and went into the traditional, like, role of like, you get your degree, you go get an office job, you work your way up the chain in that office job, and you continue to keep going, right? Like,
And that's how you've tracked so far.
and that's
right?
how I've
Like,
tracked.
Your undergraduate degree directly led you to your current corporate work, right?
It's interesting because I have a degree in communications.
Okay.
I am a VP of finance.
Okay.
Okay.
That's what I couldn't remember if you
Yeah.
had finance background
No.
for undergrad. Okay.
I have never taken a finance course in my life.
Okay.
And I
But you
think
learn
that
on the job, like
you learn
you
on the
said.
job. But
Right.
I also want to push a little bit, like, I do want to spend the most of today's conversation around what to do as a working adult when you want more and why. But, like, not all colleges, universities, and degrees are created equal, and many of the good ones right now are not with books. They are deeply embedded with jobs and internships. So
Yeah.
just, like, caveat that with, that is for sure your experience and a valid one, but that's not true of all education out there.
100%, right? But that is my experience, and, like, that I believe is not for every person.
Yes.
Right?
And so now you're seeking higher education.
You did
But
your-
it is for
And when we say higher education, I'm seeking certifications.
Certifications,
I am seeking
okay.
compliant certifications because
advanced education.
a law changed in North Carolina about our business in terms of being able to manage Airbnbs, that you now need to be a real estate licensed.
Excellent. So what does that look like?
So getting your real estate license is really interesting in North Carolina because you have to take this 70-hour course, and you can do it online, and it's like tracked and tested, and then a proctor test to pass the course before you can even go sit for your real estate exam. my husband and I both took this course, and my husband took it like every day, little by little, 70 hours, and like did his test. My course was going to expire in like 4 days, and I had not done any of it.
I should do something.
And was like, let me power through 70 hours in 4 days.
Still don't understand how you did that.
And pass the proctored exam before the course expires. Like I was like day 1 of the course expiring, and I had to like finish the proctored exam.
I'm not surprised that you were able to do that because of all your on-the-job learning too.
Right.
Like even as you were going through it, I remember you making comments about like, I already knew this.
Right. And so the test, and the thing that kills me also about education and the test is in the sector is built for every single person, no matter what your skill set is. So like there is not a course I could have taken that says, hey, I've been in this business for, 10 plus years. Let's talk about something that's actually relevant.
Right.
Instead
Like
we spent
practical test out of it.
70 hours on things I know. And was like, okay, well, that was super fun.
Really?
So if there was a way to just take the test, it would be a competency-based education. It does exist out there, but it sounds like the way the real estate test in North Carolina is set up, you couldn't do that. You had to click through. You couldn't opt to skip to
and
the
it wasn't
test.
like a click-through
You had to,
course. It was an interactive,
timing
time
how
you're
long
in
your
there,
eyeballs are on
scrolling.
interactive
I,
course.
as an instructional designer, I appreciate they did that.
Yeah.
It's good instructional design. However, it wasn't a good fit for what you needed. You needed a competency-based course where you could just opt into the test, and then if somebody couldn't pass the test, then take. I'm surprised they don't start with the test itself.
No, you can't even sit for the test until you've done the 90 hours or 70 hours.
But you did it.
But he did it, and then you go sit for the test. And interesting, I went and sat for, there's 2 parts of the test. There's the national test, and then there's the state test. And the national test is 85 questions, and the state test is 65. And you take it in a, proctored, you have to go somewhere to take it.
Oh, like a test center.
Like a test center. Again, not good for me.
Ugh.
Right?
Not good for a lot of working
man.
adults.
Right. And not just that, you're in a quiet room at a computer screen, clicking 65
With
and
other
then
people taking other tests.
Right.
Clicking
that's
clackety on the
awkward.
keyboard the whole
85
time.
questions, and then you move to 65 questions. So you do the national first, and then the state.
Mind-numbing.
And it's 4 hours, right? And you're sitting at a thing, and my spicy brain does not do well. So I passed the national, but I failed the state by 2 questions.
Oh, no.
By 2 questions.
But I bet if they gave you 2 different questions, you probably could have got that.
Right.
Well, her brain was just done.
I know,
My brain
you're
was just
fried,
done, right?
like-
I was over it. But then you can go back and you only have to sit for the one
that's
test you
nice.
missed.
That's good.
So then I can go back and take the 65 questions only, and my brain isn't already just expired from the 85 questions
Do
before.
you know which 2 you got wrong?
No, they don't. They tell you
That's
where.
not helpful.
No, they don't tell you anything, and they
About
don't.
the area, the subject matter.
Yeah, they will give you a bar line that says you were good in these and low in this section.
Okay.
And the section I missed low in was miscellaneous North Carolina laws. I'm
So descriptive. Wow.
so helpful.
Aw.
Where they preach in the whole class, you are not an attorney, do not practice law. But then I missed the North Carolina law questions. It's you literally say don't do this. So anyways, for me, getting certifications are first requirements. I would never choose to go take school or class if I was not getting some sort of cert out of it.
Yeah. So it was the certification and the compliance. You had to do this. That was your motivation.
Yeah. And that would be the only reason.
It also is going to open doors for you in the future because you do like to play Monopoly with real houses, right? And it's going to give you some incredible financial gains in the future where you are going to be able to represent yourself in buying or selling homes and cut out that financial piece.
You know what's the funniest part is it actually makes it more difficult for me to sell my own home.
Why?
Because
conflict of interest,
no,
I bet.
because you are still, as a real estate licensed agent, you are held to the same level as a real estate licensed agent is, even when you're selling your own home, with disclosures and the things you have to say. Versus when I for sale by owned, before I was licensed, I was not held.
You didn't have to.
I didn't have any of the compliance or laws.
But you don't have to pay a real estate agent.
I didn't pay a real estate agent
No,
either
but
when I
you
sold
got to
it
be
myself.
way
I know.
more particular.
You are one of the bold ones, right, who chose to do that before you even had the...
But my point is that it is actually more complicated for me now to sell my own house by myself to the point where I'm really not even going to do it because it's going to be more problematic for me to do it as a licensed real estate agent on my own home than it was when I wasn't licensed.
And still paying someone is going to be worth it rather than
the
headache
difference
of...
is that I can now get a kickback on commission because I am a licensed agent. So agents can only pay agents to agents. You can't, like, my agent could never give me money for selling my house or like give me any kickback because you can't kick back commission to non-licensed agent. So my agent partner can sell my house and then kick back me.
In like a split, or are you the selling agent, that person's
No,
buying
it's like
agent?
a split. So like he would sell my house for me for like 1% commission versus the traditional like
as like a favor.
As a favor.
Just, okay.
'Cause we're friends or whatever and business partners. But it's actually safer for me to do it that way than it is for me to do it myself anymore because I'm licensed.
That's fascinating.
Yeah,
Okay, I didn't know that.
better.
Yeah, and I didn't either. And I was like, oh shit. What a giant pain in my ass now.
So, education did teach a thing or two, but annoying things.
Yeah, but like the point being is like
Those damn
it
laws.
was actually easier for me before I was
Yeah, I
licensed.
hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I hear
as
you.
like just a Joe Schmo off the street, right?
Well, shout out to Steve for getting it done, and you almost done. Too.
By the
That
time
was a
this
lot.
airs, you will have passed the state.
I
Yeah.
also, we're not going to go down this rabbit hole, but I hear you keep labeling yourself as like, don't like school, school doesn't like me, bad test taker, and I disagree. I feel like those are messages you have heard through your childhood and other experiences, and that's no longer true. They might have been true now.
I
then.
don't enjoy it.
I hear you, but you
I don't
just
know-
crammed in 4 days for a national test, 85 questions, and pass. So I'm no longer going to accept the premise that you're not a good test taker.
But my point is, if I had done it like my husband, where I had did it in like over a 6-month period, I would have never passed.
I hear you. Your brain works differently.
Yeah, there's not
I'm
one
a
right way to
crammer.
do it.
I agree. There's not a right
that's
way or a
fine.
wrong way to take a test.
Yeah,
You are not a traditional test taker.
yeah, I'm not
How
a
about that?
traditional test taker, and I don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like there are some people I know who really enjoy school.
I like school. I hate test taking.
Well, and Tania,
So-
you also chose to, like, how do you choose the right program? Because you like school.
I do. So I now have experience with 3 forays into further education. So I have my undergrad in psychology and English literature because I pivoted halfway through my junior year. And then I started working as a public health researcher in the research world. And I fell in love with the participant interactions that I had. And I found that just as a researcher, I didn't get enough of that exposure. So I chose to go back to school, literally quit my corporate job, went back to school for 2 years and got my master's in social work for clinical practice, right? So the motivation there was I need a career shift. I want to go deeper into, these things. And then the job market collapsed the year that I graduated. And so I ended up taking the path of least resistance, and I went back to my job, thankfully, and I still, was very welcome there. It was a good place. It was solid. And then had our son a year or 2 after that. Decided corporate world was not for me. And so then I left again for good, and I worked for myself for 5 years, and then I've worked odd jobs for the last 3 years. And so then I finally hit this pivotal moment where I was like, I need more money to do the things I want to do in life and to take the trips and to have the travels and adventures with our family that we want to have. And I want to be contributing to that more than I currently am, right? We are very fortunate in that my husband's career and his income has been able to support us in a comfortable lifestyle, but I would like to do more. And so I hit this point where I was like, okay, I need to get a big girl job again, right? In my brain. This is the talk I have with myself. And I know we've talked about that before. And I have a lot of stuff that I'm still unpacking about perception of career and worth and all of those things, right? And we have another episode about that. But I was like, I'm going to get a big girl job with a big girl price tag. And then I'll be able to do all the trips and I'll have vacations, and that'll be great. So I found a online school that offered certification in project management. And because I was looking at my skill set, I'm very organized. I'm very good at navigating those things and working with people and keeping things on task. And so I was like, cool, yeah, that leans into all of my skills. And I found this course, and it like gamified the course to try and make very dry material more fun. So I was like, all right, let's see how this is. It was horrible.
That was the PMP certification.
That was the
right?
PMP certification
Even
for project
with
management.
being like all gamified.
Yeah, but it was so corny. It was so cheesy. I
rough.
literally felt like such a fraud, first of all, on it, right? I was like, this is ridiculous. And then like it had these ridiculous vignettes of like animated samurais, like they had this whole storyline of building this ancient city, and they like put on the processes of project management from start to finish with this scenario.
Oh my.
And then it cut to here's spreadsheet of like definitions. And I was like, this is really poorly designed, first of all. And so I aborted. I also had a gut check, and I was like, this is awful. It is so boring. And if I literally have to wake up and work 8 to 5 every single day just to be able to take 3 or 4 trips in the year, I'm going to hate it. I'm going to be miserable. This is not the way to get there.
Passionate about it.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. I was trying to find what I was good at, but it didn't fit what I enjoyed, right? So very big distinction there. And so I put the brakes on that, regrouped, and then we decided to launch the design business and finally take that full tilt, because we had been doing it for a few years as an add-on to the property management company. And I was like, say less. Literally, after we talked about it, like I couldn't sleep for the next couple nights because I was just so jazzed about the idea and excited. And so we leaned in and did it. And then we sat down and had a talk as we were getting all the business pieces up and running. And we're like, it would probably lend some extra weight and credibility to the business to have some professional certifications, right? We have lots of real life on the job experience doing this for ourselves and for clients, for customers, for family, friends, all the things. It would probably be good to have, some credentials as well. And so we found a different online school and have been significantly more impressed and pleased with this design school that we found online.
Well, it's very interactive.
It is very interactive, but it's also very well thought out material. Yeah. And, interior design is a very different business than the PMP. So there's also that disjoint, and maybe it lends itself better to online education, at least for what I saw in those 2 samples, right? And it's a big wide world of digital learning out there. But we've really been enjoying it. Now, the funny thing is, I was enjoying the heck out of the first unit, right? So much fun. And I'm sitting on my back patio, I'm doing the homework, and I'm taking all my notes, and then you submit your units as a package, and then a professional designer will go and grade your unit and then send you feedback.
Love that. I love that
feedback.
It's not just automatic multiple choice.
So there are quizzes.
But
there
the
are
rest
quizzes
is
along the way.
Meaning you don't have to be online at a certain time.
Correct.
Exactly.
Got it.
It is
Okay.
all at your own pace,
cool.
which is working really well for me. I don't have to be available at nighttime from 6 to 9 to do an evening class with a seminar, right? And so it's very convenient to fit into and around my life. It makes it far more feasible, I think, for a lot of people to have that flexibility.
And we're doing it together, which is
We are
fun.
doing it together. We have the same tutor.
We have the same tutor.
So then, I was feeling real good about it, right? I got my grade back. I got a C+.
And I was like, oh, that's great.
And I was like, I failed.
I was like,
literally,
you
I
didn't
looked at her
fail.
and I was like, I almost failed. And she's like, it's a C+. C's get degrees. What are you talking about?
Baby, I was like, C's.
What did you get?
I don't have my grade back yet on my first one, but
We have
are
the same
very
tutor.
intrigued.
So it was fascinating because she was so hard on the whole first unit was about basic design principles and color theory, right? And she has me doubting the fact that I can see any color in the world.
Oh, no.
Any color that you see, that slinky, what color would you say that is?
It's on the gradient. I would say it's like
What's the top of it?
Orange.
What's the
Orange.
bottom of it?
Darker orange.
mango-y orange.
It's a red orange.
It's a red orange, right? So I had a picture of a room with dark blue and bright orange stripes. And I was like, this is a blue-orange complementary color palette because they're opposites on the color wheel and da-da-da-da-da and all the things. And it's playful and fun because it was a kid's room. And she's like, that is not a complementary color palette. That is actually red-orange. It is not orange. It is a very different color. And we really need to train your eye.
So orange
to
is
see
now a
color in
trigger
the
for
world.
Tanya.
Yeah.
And I'm listening to this
Wow.
as a very happy student in the world. And I'm like,
This is like
Wait, you
verbal
can listen to
feedback.
Yeah.
She
She, like,
records
records it.
15 minutes of feedback and walks through everything that I got wrong.
So you started this by saying that this wasn't so legit. This is very legit.
It is. It is. I think
an
I
actual
was a
certification
little.
out of Canada. This is amazing.
No, it's the International Design and Decorating Professional Certifications, the IDDP.
Yeah.
Which is a professionally, nationally recognized certification. So it is legit, very much so. But
Sounds really hard too.
And so then she was like, I strongly encourage you to resubmit your units because you don't have to and you could go on, but I really think that you need to make sure that you can grasp these concepts before you move on. And I was like,
wow.
I have been designing, have I got it all wrong? And I literally was looking at my husband last night. I was like, can I not see color? And he's like, you're fine.
And it's so funny to watch our different approaches.
Full-on implosion of self. And I was like, maybe I shouldn't be doing that. And I think there's a whole lot of other stress factors that are happening right now. And it all hit at the same time. But it is funny to think, right, that even with this asynchronous, fitted in around, it's still stressful.
For sure.
But I put a lot of pressure on myself for it too. And so I think this is a good learning experience. I am processing the emotion. I take rejection and criticism very personally, and I know that I have to not do that. In a professional capacity, you can't do that, and especially in a subjective field. You can't do that, right? So this is a good learning moment for me, and I'm going to embrace it. I just had to be in my feels for a couple of days.
So interesting. I feel like I have no qualms about criticism from being in a male-dominated corporate world.
But we are very different people.
Yeah, where I'm okay, cool. You didn't like me.
Criticism from anybody, and you let it. I told my friend Erin, we were hanging out that night. She was keeping me company. And I told her, I was like, Nichole, she is like a freaking duck in a waterfall. Nothing touches her. It just rolls right off. It's not a duck in a pond. You in a waterfall still won't affect you.
Chilling.
Wow. It's amazing. But
are there any support services?
There are.
Is there live classes you could hop on and chat with a study buddy, or
I didn't think I needed
tutoring?
The support. She is my tutor.
I know, but is there more than just feedback?
Yes. So they have an online community through Facebook that you can go on, and apparently you can ask questions there. And obviously I should have asked questions, because one of the things I did take issue with is their source material was disjointed with the worksheet materials. Terminology that they used was not the same.
Oh, that's tricky.
And she got really on my case about not using the correct terminology. And I was like, bitch, that was what was in my textbook.
Well,
and in my resubmission, I have a whole paragraph.
Citation.
See page 11 about color values in high and low values. It is not light and dark, or it says light and dark in the text and it's high and low. And she's like, oh, I didn't read any of the textbooks.
She's like,
she just took the whole thing, didn't read a lick of it.
Competency-based
I just
education
did the
girly. She's
assignment.
like, let me just do the assignment and see what happens.
And I was like,
I cannot
cool.
wait to hear that.
We might have to do a follow-up to the episode. I told Landon yesterday, I was like, there's such a part of me that I just want you to go through in flying colors, nail the whole thing and be done with it and go. And then the other part of me just wants you to get railed with me. And then at least I know it's not just me.
It's going to be
You should post in the Facebook group about this and see what other people say.
I did. Apparently there are teaching assistants that you can reach out to, but the email address for them is not readily available.
Okay.
So, and I have to pay extra money for it to be
So that was
resubmitted
kind of my
and be
question.
graded again.
How much does this whole experience cost?
Oh, this is not cheap course.
It's not cheap.
I know.
$1,500.
Okay. For each individual thing, or the whole cert?
For the whole interior decorating course.
Okay.
And it's 6 units long.
And is there a capstone piece to get the certification, like an additional cost and test, or is the completion of the courses equals this?
There is a final project that you would complete at the end that will be a culmination of all the skills you learned and everything, and demonstrate that. But it's not an additional test that you have to take for the certification. So as long as you pass with passing grades, then you have demonstrated.
C's get degrees and
certs. Is a pass.
Girls, that's what I said.
Pass, fail, it's a pass.
I understand as an instructor her push to you should do it again until you feel more comfortable. But she doesn't know you. You will do it again and obsess over this forever.
I know.
You will never forget what
perfect,
red orange is. You don't need someone else to tell you that on a second submission if you have to
the whole
pay
drive home last
money.
night, I was like, Lana, do you think that's orange? Do you think that's orange? I'm like, it's not.
I'm like, the amount of Marcos we've had on this, just back and forth. It's okay. I love it. But I'm just like, she's like, well, what did you think? I was like, listen, I have not gotten my grade back yet, so you should not be asking me for my opinion.
I cannot wait to find out.
It could be also an F, like, because I didn't read a single text.
I went and read her assignments, and I was like, ooh, I don't know.
I cannot wait.
I was just like, I'm just rolling.
Well, the other thing, and this is an aside, and then we can get back to the full conversation about education, but it makes me chuckle because, again, I'm never going to let it go, is Sherwin-Williams artichoke.
Oh, God.
The color green artichoke.
I'm
right?
picturing a specific shade of green. But I don't know if it's it, but I'm imagining it.
Okay,
You got to Google it.
There's some.
I was supposed to pick a warm, cozy tone.
That's
and I wanted
precisely what I'm
color in the
picturing.
room. So I chose
feel like it looks a lot like this.
artichoke.
Uh-huh.
And it literally describes, so we were going back and forth. I see it as warm. She sees it as cool. She was like, ooh, I don't
I
know.
think
She
it's
agreed
cool.
with her. And I was like,
It's
oh.
green, so it's
Yeah.
nice.
So then she's like, let's ask
I'm saying, look, I know anything about
Let's
this.
ask.
Let's ask ChatGPT. That'll solve it. There's
Sure.
only one
No,
way,
I don't think it'll
sure
solve
way.
that.
So I Google it, ChatGPT. I was like, is this exact color for Sherwin-Williams warm or cool? And it's like, this is a warm tone. And it like bolded warm. And I was like, yeah. And then she uses ChatGPT and is like, this is a cool color.
Yeah.
With earthy
But you can
tones.
look up the color ID, right?
On the website.
On this,
Yeah.
like, little square thingy.
It says it is a cool, earthy, cozy green.
but still cool undertones because it's like a gray blue.
So maybe
green.
we should post this for our listeners and do
Oh my
a
God.
poll.
Yeah.
If you think
Yeah,
it's
okay.
It's gonna be
A
like the
cool-
red, the blue.
Okay, we're gonna do a thing that
white
Nichole
dress.
hates. Post
Yeah, which
Nichole.
I do the dress.
Post Nichole. What color is this? Warm or green? The picture's right here.
warm or cool.
Warm or cool?
It's
Sorry.
green for sure.
Green
Let's
for
not
sure.
make everybody crazy.
Warm.
It's like that dress. Yeah.
Warm
Okay.
or cool color.
Okay.
Oh
Well,
my
congrats
God.
on that and
Thank you.
and the investment in yourself. And it sounds like
Yeah.
it's aligning to your career goals. It's not a
sure.
compliance. It's like a skill-based thing and also like acknowledging the skills you already have.
Yes.
And I also think
legitimizing
it
you in
is
the
not just
industry.
like, I also feel like it is a compliance thing.
It's
in
not a
terms-
compliance because you don't have to.
Right.
But
Not a
like
requirement, but it will benefit our business for
Right.
sure. And I think we also talked about it at great length and decided for both of us to do it because we wanted to make sure that we have the same foundational reference points for
Right.
design and for the terminology
Yeah.
and for all the pieces. The other part about this particular certification course, if anyone is interested, is it does provide a funnel and literally a training ground for building your own business for people who are
That's
looking
nice.
to start their own. So there's an optional unit at the end that is all about like business documents, how to do, set up all of those pieces so that you can launch your own business with it, which I really appreciated and respected. So
And it has subspecialties. So if you
Subspecialties
want
are
to start
really
getting into
cool.
subspecialties, there's some subspecialty courses you can take once you take the initial course. But like,
Networking opportunities with your cohort too?
I don't know.
I don't know yet, but we'll get it. I'm sure there's going to be options of
Yeah.
that. But like, it's
It's gonna
interesting.
be great. I just
because
had a
I feel
minor
like
meltdown.
Tania and I are the like certs and like off traditional education. Although you do have like an MBA, so like you are traditionally education.
MSW.
Okay, MSW. But you guys are like the MBA queens over here.
Yeah.
I don't technically have my MBA.
But you're almost there.
It's a long story.
Okay.
We should discuss. But Ashley has her
Yeah,
MBA.
let's talk about Ashley's course,
I
her
do
journey.
have my
'Cause
MBA.
That's a very different decision. So you needed something more. What made you choose the MBA?
So I chose an MBA because I'm an engineer by trade. I have engineering certifications. That's all cool. But I got to a point in my career where I realized I had knowledge gaps. And I was not going to get the opportunity to learn them on the job because of the nature of my job. And I wasn't going to get my foot in the door if I didn't at least talk the talk, and like...
Because you had to decide technical or business.
Yeah. I was at the point of, I did not ever pass the CCIE lab exam. So I'm at the point of, do I go back and try...
What is a CCIE lab exam?
It's the Cisco expert level exam.
It's like the highest certification
Yep.
for the.
It's like doctorate
training.
level kind of engineering stuff. And there's at the time, there was a written exam you had to pass, which I did, and then an 8-hour
Yeah, it's
practical
like
lab
8
exam.
hour.
8
my goodness.
Yeah.
hours?
It was at the time, and I'm dating
Yeah.
myself here. It was 2 hours of troubleshooting a broken live network.
Yep.
And then you took a break, and then you got 6 hours of configuring from scratch a live network. Like you're literally sitting there like configuring a router that's plugged in.
And
right
these
next
are like
to
the
you.
highest Cisco certifications
Wow.
there are, and
That sounds
they're
really
like
hard.
world known.
Yes.
So, like,
Yeah,
this is across the
Yes.
board.
So
And-
technically, I only got to the professional level, the CCNP certification. So I got to a point of, do I go back and knock out the lab exam so I can get promoted and continue in my career, or do I go the business route? And I joked at the time that I was a mediocre engineer, but pretty good at other stuff. So I decided to go the business route, and I needed to like fill those knowledge gaps.
Okay.
So an MBA did it for me.
Okay.
How did you pick which program?
I picked based on what would fit into my life and how I learn. I knew I needed something asynchronous because I was not going to be able to sit there for like an online class at night. I took a lot of night classes in undergrad and I hated it. That was tricky. So there's that. And I wanted it to be accredited because then I could possibly get reimbursed by work.
Yep.
Like, that was another thing that I was looking for.
Is there a lot of options on the online accredited MBA programs?
Oh, yeah.
At the time also, because it was a couple years ago.
Yeah, it was 2020 when I started.
Oh, yeah, like right around COVID.
Yeah.
It was
right?
like
It
a
was already
month
there.
before.
Yeah.
More
But yeah,
now,
there's
but-
definitely more now. When I signed up for the program, their accreditation was pending. So I kind of made a bet like,
Okay.
all right, let's hope this works out, because they had their own platform, online platform for learning. The way the courses were designed made a lot of sense to me. It was a lot of bite-sized, asynchronous things. Just the way it was structured made a lot of sense. And I needed that structure because I can't learn on my own otherwise. I need some direction.
Did you find it on your own, or did you chat with friends, or have a reputation? Like, there's so many out there.
Yeah, I don't remember
okay.
how I found it. For all I know, it could have been like a Facebook ad because my phone heard me talking.
Yeah. And which one is it?
It's Quantic School of Business.
Okay.
They're based out of Virginia, funny enough. And they did end up getting their accreditation.
Oh, good.
So, yeah, it's legit. And it was an executive
It's
MBA.
a big program.
Yeah, it was a 1 year or like 13 months executive MBA.
Oh, wow.
They did have a more traditional MBA program, but because I was already working, that was the path they recommended for me.
Yeah, so you don't have to quit your job. But that's really intense, like, timeline. How did you balance that all, and with an engineering job too?
And kids and life.
Like, I'm not to minimize the certs we've been talking about. I have certs
Certainly,
too, but it's like more intense for a much shorter period of time.
Yeah.
This is a lot. This is a hefty amount.
Yeah, I mean, the intensity for me was comparable to when I got my Cisco certs early on, but I didn't have kids then and all the other stuff going on. I waited until I was at a point career-wise where I was, coasting's not the right word if any coworkers are listening, but like I felt competent in what I was doing and it wasn't requiring as much.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
before I expand into something else, like I dedicated the brain space to doing this. And
And by
Bob
the way,
was really
there is
supportive.
nothing wrong with being able to just do your job in your job
That's
and
what they
not
pay you
do
for. And
you do it
anything
well.
above
Yeah.
and below,
Yeah.
right?
And that's kind of how I knew it was time to do something. And they weren't going to let me do more if I didn't have something to show
Yeah.
for it. So it all worked out. And Bob was incredibly supportive about it. Like, we talked about ahead of time. Like, 2 nights a week, I need you to protect my time so that I can sit down and do this. Because I did have to do exams, and I didn't want to do them on the weekends. There was a big capstone project at the end that I had to do, a group project.
I was going to say you had to do group projects too.
I remember that being a
awful
huge
enough,
stressor.
but like group projects with other adults, I think would be.
I hate group projects.
Yeah, like other strangers
think
I've
a
been talking
big-
to online. It was great.
A big piece of what people tend to want out of an MBA, in addition to the skills that you described and the letters that legitimize you in front of some employers, is the network, right? If you,
Okay.
the friends that you make and where they land, that network is often really important to folks in business. So I imagine that was part of the drive, even if it didn't
Yes.
work that way.
Yes.
That was what they were going for.
And it was an advertising point for this particular school too, that we have students from Cisco, from Microsoft, from Apple and Google and all these like tech places. So I'm like, all right, if it's good enough for them, sure, good enough for me too. And I learned a ton very quickly.
So would you recommend an MBA over like your regular degree, right? Like you actually learned more there than you did in your...
You have to have a bachelor's to go
I hear
into
you,
it.
but
Yeah.
I'm curious to know, like,
Was it worth the investment of your time and
Totally.
energy? And
yeah.
For me, it was absolutely worth it. Like
Good.
I learned all those things that I needed to know about business. I moved from engineering and like delivery into pre-sales, but like the technical pre-sales. So now I'm writing proposals and statements of work, and I understand what it means when we're talking about margins and protecting costs on the delivery side. Like I could have totally different conversations,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden I had a different value to add. and it was
That's
noticed.
awesome.
It worked out really well.
And it sounds like your husband, like your family was on board with that time commitment. I think and you talked about protecting time. Like that's essential if you're going to do this, especially as a working parent.
Yeah. We were very lucky in the fact that we had a nanny at the time. So there was a third adult around that was helping with things. And then, I started it in February or end of January of 2020. So then when the pandemic happened, I'm like, well, shit, I'm glad this is online.
Yeah.
And I was able to finish it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if it was in person, like I looked at like Chapel Hill, UNC Chapel Hill is like a really good program too. I looked at that. But if it was in person and classes were canceled, like...
They all went online, but it wasn't designed initially that way.
Right,
it was a rough
right.
year.
It'd be such an interruption.
Yeah.
I will say for my MSW, it was in person, but that was also pre-kids. So it was a whole different world, right? Like it was so much easier to be able to do that. And then like I worked at RTI over the summer break between the 2 years. So like totally different parameters.
Yeah.
Did your work reimburse you for it or some of it? Or what was the cost
started before it was accredited, so I never applied for any reimbursement.
Never?
No, because they have to approve it before you start. It has to be accredited before you start.
Oh,
Did you know that?
No, and in my mind, I'm like, whatever, exceptions, I'll get an exception, and just no, that's not how that works.
Oh, that's so.
But I like
How
to
much
think I
was
can
it
bend rules.
ish?
So I ended up getting scholarships. I applied for scholarships through them, and
Good.
I don't know what they did, if they applied on my behalf to other programs. Somehow my out-of-pocket cost was $2,000.
I didn't even know
amazing.
scholarships would be an option for something like that.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somehow, I don't remember
Especially
what it would
for a
have been.
female non-white engineer.
Yep, I was very, very lucky, and I could afford it at the time too. Like that's not something everyone can do.
I'm also always interested in the people that get like higher education degrees for the letters, right? Like the goal was to get the letters.
Yeah.
Right. And you said you
And
learned,
to fill the knowledge gaps.
Right. Well, that's what my next question is. So you say you learned a lot, but do you think that you would have learned that had you been put into the job to do those without the MBA? I'm always just curious to know, if, like on the job
to learn
training,
on the job if she had
would
been
you
given
have
the
I mean, like,
opportunity.
if we took away the assumption that she needed that to get
Right,
the job,
to get
if
to
you
the job.
already had the job,
if you
would
took away
have
the
learned all
assumption that you needed that MBA letters to get the job, would
But,
you
like-
have learned the skills on the
Could
job?
you have?
It would have taken a lot longer.
Okay.
A lot longer. And because maybe this is just because of the scale of Cisco, but our roles end up being kind of specific to certain functions. So
Yeah.
it's not as broad of exposure unless you're doing rotations and shadowing and all that. But like that depends on your workload.
Yeah.
So-
I'm always just intrigued by is it the letters or is it the knowledge? Like
I
if you
mean-
didn't need the letters to get to the role,
Yeah.
would you have learned it then?
I would have learned some.
Yeah.
I still wouldn't have covered all of it. Like there's still things that I haven't even touched professionally, and it's been 4 years now since I started.
yeah.
hear.
It is good to hear.
Still very tempted to go back and get my MBA because I am a letter collector.
Yeah, you
and
are a letter collector.
I honestly like kind of underestimated that, but like as I got through the program and I'm like, this is a lot. I had a sense of pride, and I think doing it after kids, because like you were saying, Tania, you did grad school before kids, having a sense of I did this.
Yeah, you
My
did.
brain still works. Like I can bang it out. Like that was a really big confidence booster professionally and personally.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, haha, I have the letters. So like if you find me on LinkedIn, I made sure to
got
put
the letters.
EMBA, like, because it matters.
Yeah.
And I understand that now.
Was the E
Executive.
executive?
Oh, for a second, I thought that meant like like digital. And I was like, wait, no, they make you qualify that? Okay.
No,
Thank goodness.
but to like,
okay.
to qualify that it was an intensive program, a professional level program, not
While
like straight,
working.
yeah,
Yeah.
while working, because it's a little different that way.
And think about the example that we're setting for our kids too, that like education can go on and you can choose it in many different paths, many different ways. Like my son, he very clearly right now says he will not go to college, does not want to go to college. And I'm like, okay, like we can talk about that. We can talk about all the options, right? Like there's so much out there for you. We got to think about what you want to do. And sometimes further education becomes a requirement to do the things you want to do, right? But like by the time he gets there, there's going to be a whole other world of
A
things,
lot
right?
Different
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
But I love to be able to like show him that like, hey, I'm in class right now, right? Like I need to go study. I need to do this. And like that you can be a lifetime learner too, I think is really cool.
Yeah. I'll never forget Beto finishing his bachelor's degree. Luna was like 3 months old when he walked at ECU, and Cruz was like 4, and getting to see them cheer Daddy on while he walked across
That's
the
so
stage was really cool.
special.
And Cruz
Amazing.
still remembers.
Yeah.
He doesn't remember the details or what or where or why, but he
Now,
remembers.
when
cheering
it's
for
his
him.
turn now to walk across
It'll
the
mean more.
stage,
Yeah. Yeah.
So Jenny, you're our resident letter collector, education
so
person.
yes and no.
So like, tell me all the letters you have. Let's hear all the letters.
I don't have that many letters.
Feels like a lot of letters.
Well, I have a lot of experiences. So my undergrad, my bachelor's is in teaching, so in education. Through that, I had to get state certification. So I had, I was from Pennsylvania, so it was 7th to 12th grade, meaning I could teach English to those grades. When I moved here, North Carolina state law was different, so I had to take additional tests. And so I got 6th through 8th grade English and social studies. And then I went back and got my master's at UNC with the Center of Literacy and Disability Studies, so a master's in reading, specifically with the lens of like how to teach kids who can't read that are like a middle school.
Mm-hmm. And that's like an exceptionally good program there, too.
It's a great program, yes. I learned a ton. Like, I had never really learned, even at that point, being at a really good educational school and a teacher, had never learned how to teach kids to read. And I think when you focus on early elementary, you learn that, right? But I didn't. And then I came to a relatively rural community where most of my kids, probably only half, were reading at like a 3rd grade level as 7th and 8th graders. They weren't diagnosed with any sort of disability. They were just really behind. And then a lot of
still being
teachers
moved through the system.
and a lot of teachers that didn't know what to do when a kid couldn't really read to learn. So there was like a huge tension there, which is why I went back. And then I got a reading specialist cert, which is K-12. So talk about certs.
Yeah,
Started off
certs.
strong, but that's just the nature of kind of nursing and teaching and these jobs that are accredited or licensed at a state level. And then for the past decade or so, I kind of moved up through the ranks, and then I started working more in online education. And when you work in online education, then those programs are really valued by your colleagues, by your employers. And also, if I'm going to go in and consult with someone and tell them how to improve a program, what better way than to be a mystery shopper?
Yeah.
So I did a few, one, because I was interested, but 2, because these also were my clients, and I could push on how to improve the student experience because I had
Lived it.
screenshots,
Yeah.
I had receipts, you know. So the first one I did was eCornell. It was a diversity and inclusion certificate because I was on our DEI council. And then I did, that one was very much a lot of theory, a lot of writing. So like, did I learn a lot? Probably not, but I got the cert and the, code words, not to minimize it, it's really important topics, but like it was helpful to add that to my resume.
Is that kind of certification like something that's industry recognized, or is it the school says you've gone deep enough in this topic that you know it?
It is not an official certification or accredited. It's
but
just.
DNI has expanded.
It's almost like a badge that I could put on my LinkedIn.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, but it was legit. I mean, it was,
Yeah.
But I wanted something that was a little less theory and a little bit more like application. So then I did a certificate through PathStream, which is not as well known, but I'm a big fan because it actually had me, instead of just learning the terms of project management, it actually had me in Asana, and doing tasks, and that's how I was graded. And I didn't have to do any of the content. I could skip right to the end and just do the tasks in Asana and pass. It was competency based, right? If you needed the
Asana's a
content
project
before
management program.
yeah.
Yep.
If you needed to go back and watch the videos and the models, you
Speaking
could.
my language
That's what
here.
cool.
Literally
She had
go
it.
straight to this is the task, do that, and you get your grade. And it took me a while to switch my brain. Like I was clicking through and felt like I have to do this and get the check marks before I can take my test. And then I was like, this is taking a lot of time. I didn't need to do this. So it was a good moment for me to realize what competency-based education can look like. I learned a lot, and I'm a big fan of PathStream and Asana. And then I just started wanting to collect pretty logos. I was like, if I can do that. You have to remember this. I didn't have to pay a dime.
Right.
This was all paid by my employer. I didn't even have to put it on a card and they reimbursed me. It was all paid by them. I would not probably have gone so heavy if there were thousands of dollars for each of these programs.
Was it also rolled into your then kind of your workload? Or was this all things you were doing at night in addition to?
I was doing it at night in addition
Okay.
to.
That there alone is no thank you.
And then I did one at Yale, which was the negotiation strategies at Yale. That was the first one where it was fully asynchronous, but there was an optional synchronous part. And I was terrified. But my colleagues who had done this before encouraged me to go, and you went and like no background knowledge. It was all locked, and you went in an hour and a half Zoom. Then they gave you like the case that you could prep for 20 minutes and like a live negotiation and then write about it. And then they did that again at the end of the course. And I was really scared, but I learned so much more from that one in particular. Yeah. One, because the content's kind of evergreen, right? I don't think negotiation skills really change a lot year to year. So the videos, the content was really strong. But two, then you have to like actually do it.
Yeah.
And then I had so much to write about. Like I actually had things to say. I wasn't just like, oh, I have to BS this, you know?
Just brainstorming a hypothetical.
Well, and that feels like a real world applicable
really
skill
lovely.
that you can use like in every career path.
It has been.
Personal, right? Like
it
that,
really has
I can see value in that
for me in particular.
Particularly for you.
Yeah. And then, I was planning to continue, and I was kind of like, do I do my MBA? Because they would pay for it. But I was feeling like I don't have time. Like I was worried about biting off anything a little bigger than those. Those are about 6 to 8 weeks experiences. I think Yale might have been 10 or 12. So over the summer, when I had my summer of fun employment and I was laid off, I did through the London School of Economics. They have MBA Essentials. So I think it's like a 6-course program. So it's not an official MBA.
A great way to dabble in
but
those
it was a
essentials.
dabble in the essentials, and there was a good chunk of them. It might have been more than 6. I can't even remember. The finance ones nearly kicked my butt. I needed the videos. I needed every little, like, it was like optional. Click here. I clicked on all of that.
That's so interesting.
But the modules that were about like leadership and influencing, like I didn't need it.
Yeah.
But it really did help me see like some of the, you mentioned like language that I needed, vocabulary, like being able to talk about the different kind of financial reports and managerial accounting and what the heck it all means. It was
P&L versus
really,
balance sheet.
Yes,
really
exactly.
helpful.
Yeah.
And not that I need to necessarily make those, but I need to be able to manage to those and understand and not feel dumb in a meeting for not knowing what different acronyms meant. So those are all my letters, but I don't have an MBA. I don't have a doctorate yet.
And I like how those are yets for you. Like those are big ass things to do.
If someone else is going,
ahead of you, like that's
if an employer is going to pay for it, and I don't do it, for me, that's me leaving money on the table. That is a part of my compensation package.
Yes.
And if you are not taking advantage of that, then you are leaving money on the table.
It's so interesting you think that, because it's like my company offers lots of certifications in the financial industry. There's lots of different, like there's your Fin 5, 6, whatever, lots of those that they will pay for. But I'm like, no, thank you.
Would that be leveraged later?
Your career goals too, right? A bit, right? In terms of where you see yourself going and your.
But I think even before when I
trajectory.
worked in nonprofit and they're like, we will pay for you to go get an MBA. And I was like, no, thank you.
I have the exact opposite response. I'm like, okay, I should do that. And it's a retention play for me. Like I'm talking about maybe doing my EDD or a doctorate with my current employer, and I'm like, that would keep me there at least for the length of my program. Because
It's golden
committed to
handcuffs in
finish
a
it.
different way.
Yeah.
Non-monetary.
But I don't like to be handcuffed anywhere for any particular reason.
But as a business owner, you should look into this. I don't know how it works with a small business owner, but almost all employers, even if it's not formally in their like benefits explanations, will give you $5,250 because that's the limit of what they can get as a tax credit. So if listeners are listening and wondering, I would ask your HR department, and most of them will do $5,250 because it's a tax write-off for them, for their employees to do. And most of them you have to pay up front and get reimbursed, so it's not always quite as nice as what I had. But I absolutely think it's worth it, and it opens doors. I would have never gotten any of the jobs in ed tech that I did leaving the classroom if I didn't have a master's. It didn't matter, frankly, what it was in. I just needed that level of a piece of paper to even get in the interview, which is changing.
And I was
but
saying,
it's
like,
the
and
current
part of me
state.
is like, that's kind of awful.
I agree, but
like, I dislike that tremendously.
I know, and it's not that way everywhere, and it is changing, especially now, but that's definitely how it was. And I feel like it's career advancement and new opportunities, whether you plan it or not, right? It's the people you meet. It's the networking you do. It's the conversations you can have based on the lingo. So I do think it's really like, I wouldn't have, looking back, thought like these things are going to all, like it wasn't strategic. I wasn't like, I'm going to do this so I can get that job, and I'm going to do this so I can negotiate. It was, but it for sure, looking back, has increased my overall earning potential substantially.
Yeah.
It has. And I love that when you learn things, no one can take it from you. Like once you know it and you've proven it.
Except my brain.
Well, sure. Caveat, falls out your brain.
time,
But like the time that you invested, the experience you had, like no one can take that degree, that cert away from you. Sure, it expires, but like you did it.
That's
They
so
don't all
fascinating.
expire, some
That
do.
sparks an interesting thing for me. I have this like disjoint in my brain a little bit because I don't use my social work degree
Your
in a
expensive
professional, my expensive full-time in-person program I did. I don't use that degree in a professional sense, right? I am not a social worker by practice. I do use what I learned every single day, right? And I know that it has made me a better communicator, and my ability to work with people in various ways, right? And various personalities, like it has benefited me tremendously. But there's still a part of me that feels a little bit guilty or uncomfortable keeping those letters after my name. Like I have it on my email signature because I am proud of it. But like, I don't know. There's a part of me that feels like I don't deserve to get to use it sometimes. I know.
Yours. Those letters are
It's yours.
It is.
They don't
It
ever
is.
expire.
But so it's an interesting thing of like, I think about all of my friends that did go on and they are doing amazing things in the social work field. And I'm like, oh, like I didn't follow that path, right?
I think that's like the unpacking of your questions about whether or not the things you do are legitimate or as important as other things, right? Like,
but I do see it benefits me every day, both as a parent and as just an adult in the world.
that should be like a requirement for parenthood.
I tell you
It
what.
really should
Taking
be.
some of those courses.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I think we are a little bit divided. I am an avid learner, but I am an avid like YouTube learner.
Yeah, learn
Like,
your way.
I'm on your like
Guerrilla style.
Guerrilla style. I love to like figure out how to do something and watch a short tutorial on how to do it, but it's like literally got to be like less than 10 minutes for like my brain to function it.
That micro learning, is that what that's called?
Micro-learning.
Yeah, like I'm a micro learner. If there's something I can figure out to do, like I'll do it. But like these bigger degree, like I have no interest in adding letters to my name. I don't care enough to do it.
Well, for some people, I think it's like a sense of self, or they take value and they feel accomplished. For some people, it's they have to do it for their job, and you don't, especially as an entrepreneur. So
And just career shifts, right? Like where I'm at, right? Like I turning over a whole new chapter, and it's going to provide me that springboard to make that happen faster. So
I would argue it almost like validates what's already there, Tanya. I think for you, it's a lot of confidence.
I do think that it will validate a lot of what I already know.
Or Angie's going to unvalidate.
Or she is going to be my undoing.
We need to send this podcast to Angie.
Angie's going to be undoing.
Oh, no. Oh, Angie.
Oh, but for our listeners, I do hope you consider further education or certifications, or take that leap, and you never know what doors it will open.
Are there other ways you like to learn or get certifications that like we haven't talked about here, right?
For sure.
So like we're gonna put up this post, tag us in what other programs you take or things you're continuing to do into your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s even, right?
90s,
like,
you never know.
I don't know, yeah. Whichever, we're not quite there yet, so I don't know. I don't think I'm doing any tests in my 90s.
I might be. You're like, look, friend.
Unless there's a box one
Your certificate.
test, like I am not here for that. So if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and follow us on all of these socials at ShePak Unleashed.
Thank you for being a part of our pack.
This is Ashley, Jenny, Nichole, and Tanya signing off. Stay wild and fierce and educated.
Yeah, girl.
Yeah.